So good morning everyone. I'm giving you again today, I'm giving you the time to complete all the questions from Bangal composition scheme, all the questions of Bangal for registration, and whatever doubt you would be having regarding that we will discuss tomorrow. So basically type of question that you can expect in registration. Question number 1 that you can expect is they will directly, they will ask you to calculate the threshold limit. But then when they are giving you the threshold limit, be very precise that whether in threshold limit, any one state is Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Tripura. Are you getting? Threshold limit, if even a one state is belonging to M square NT, in such a case, it would not be 20 lakh. In such a case, it would not be 40 lakh. It would be directly 10 lakh. So this was my question number 1, the type of question I can expect when it comes to registration. Question number 2, when it comes to registration, they will give you everything about the aggregate turnover, but one of the supply that they have given could be an interstate supply. One of the supply that they would give is reverse charge mechanism wala concept, that invert supply through reverse charge mechanism. So basically, do understand one thing, even if they have given you threshold limit ka calculation, in that place also, if they have given section number 24 ka even a single point, then in such a case, there is no threshold limit available to you. It is 0 ka threshold limit, and you have to anyhow do what? You have to anyhow to get registered. So are you getting the type of question that might be asked? Type of question number 3, that the person is liable to register and got registered after 30 days. He has made application within 30 days. So what is the impact of after 30 days, within 30 days? That could be asked in form of numerical. And where it would be asked, it would not be asked here. It would be asked in your input tax credit wala chapter. They will be asking this concept that if you were liable to get registered within 30 days, you got your registration application, and after 30 days if you have applied for registration, the impact would be there, and that impact you will find either in MCQ or that impact you would find in input tax credit ka chapter. Understood? Then when it comes to again your chapter registration, what is asked? It could be a case study also. They could even ask a case study also. They can frame any kind of case study. Composition scheme. What about the composition scheme? When it comes to composition scheme, they will give what is the turnover limit, or whether he is eligible to get registered under composition scheme as a trader, eligible to get registered under composition scheme as a manufacturer. Now task for you, open the July 21 ka paper, question number 2 you have to solve. July 21 ka question number 2 is related to your composition scheme, whether trader, whether manufacturer. Write it down. Sudhir, you are connected with 2 devices. Which one you would like to continue?
I log off from one device.
I can see here. Madhuri, you are also getting connected from other device?
Yeah, I will disconnect with mobile now.
So July 21, it is question number 2 that you have to do. That question number 2 is about composition scheme only. Okay. Then when it comes to composition scheme, what is asked? Basically, liable to get registered under composition, not liable to get registered under composition, that you have to show by calculating aggregate turnover. And the other question is, what is the tax they have to pay? When it is about tax, do pay attention. When it is manufacturer, 0.5% of turnover in a state. But when it comes to trader, it is 0.5% of turnover. Nahi, it is taxable turnover of the state. Shivek, do focus on that things. Now, when it comes to restaurant wala service, so in such a case, it is 2.5% again turnover in the state. When it comes to again composition scheme, but that wala composition scheme, in such a case, the turnover limit is 50 lakh only. However, for goods का supply, no limit as like service has been given. जैसे हमको section 10 में service limit was provided, it would be turnover का 10% or 5 lakh, whichever is highest state-wise. But in such a case, there is no turnover limit. So basically, you have to overall see 50 lakh rupees. 50 lakh if crossed, you are not eligible for that composition 10 to A wala. Understood? Done. So again, today, if you have not completed the questions of registration, not completed questions of composition, so do complete it from test your knowledge, do complete it from Bangar. The whole rule you have to follow is one thing: do not check the answers before you solve it yourself. Once you have done by yourself, then only check the answers, then only you will get the benefit of getting your mistakes. Okay? Chalo. So tomorrow, ask me all the doubts in half an hour. First half an hour, I will answer all the doubts related to registration and composition. Okay? Chalo. So now I'm going to start with the most important chapter for mega exemption. Now, is it specifically the questions will be asked from here? No, specifically questions might be asked. Specifically, the question might be asked. But when it comes to mega exemption, you will always find clustered with question number 1. My question number 1. So finally, we have started with something that now I can link everything to question number 1. When it comes to question number 1 would have what are the chapters it would be having. First of all, it would be having the chapter supply. Question number 1 will be having chapter value of supply. Question number 1 would be having reverse charge mechanism. Question number 1 would be having mega exemption. Question number 1 would be having place of supply ka concept. Question number 1 would be having composite supply or mixed supply ka concept. Basically, if you have noticed that wala question, laptop and laptop bag wala question, have we done? Laptop and laptop bag. What was that question? It was having composition scheme also. It was having your reverse charge mechanism also. It was having value supply also. It was having mega exemption also. Everything would be compiled then and there in your question number 1. First of all, my mindset to start my question number 1 is to check whether the person is doing all the work in same state or he is in different state. So basically, when you will find question number 1, there would be something written that suppose Mr. X is registered in Haryana. To focus on that state that he is registered in Haryana and then see the supply he is doing. Where is the place of supply and where is the recipient? Both you have to understand properly. Because in the question now they are asking not directly to apply the place of supply ka concept, but you should know that he is registered in Haryana and where is the location of recipient, that will decide whether you have to apply on that supply IGST or you have to apply CGST, SGST. Is that first number point clear to you? So when it comes to my question number 1, first of all, what should I focus? I will focus on one thing, that is what is the place of supply and what is the location of recipient. These two things I have to focus. Chalo. I have focused for point number 1 on place of supply and location of recipient. Now they would be giving me certain transactions, certain activities they would be giving. Activity number 1, activity number 2, they have given me certain activity. What should I do in question number 1 now? First of all, read that activity very properly, read that transaction very properly and try to link that concept. Whether the concept is actually a supply of goods, that means is it actually a supply of goods? Because if something is not a good, primarily it is no GST ka concept. So first of all, my mindset should be to understand whether it is supply of goods. Yes, ma'am, it is supply of goods. No, ma'am, it is not actually a good. So when the particular thing is not at all a good, do not write it is not liable to tax. You have to write it is not covered in the preview of GST because it is not at all a good. Your language of provision will decide your marks. So your language of provision should not be it is exempt, it is not liable to tax. You have to specifically write it is outside the preview of GST as it is not a good or it is not a service as the case may be. Therefore, no GST will be leviable over here. Are you getting? When it is not covered in goods. So my first step is to identify whether it is goods or whether it is service. Do write it. First point to solve question number 1. Point number 1. Question number 1. Identify place of supply. First of all, identify place of supply. And in first paragraph only they will give the registered person kahan registered hai, where the registered person is registered. First number point, identify the place of supply. And accordingly on the basis of location of recipient, identify whether to apply CGST as GST or IGST. Whether to apply CGST as GST or IGST. Point number 2. Point number 2. Identify inactivities or transaction. Identify inactivity or transaction whether it is actually supply of goods or service. In short, check whether particular thing covered in goods or service or not. In short, check whether a particular thing covered in definition of goods or service or not. Now, point number 3. Now, suppose it is actually a supply of goods or it is actually a supply of service. Okay, it is what supply of goods, it is what supply of service. Now, even though it is supply of goods, it is supply of service, I have to check what I have to check whether it is somewhere covered in schedule number 3, whether it is somewhere covered in mega exemption. So I have to basically check that concept ki whether even though I can judge it is supply of goods, it is supply of service, but what if it is covered in schedule 3? What if it is covered in what? Your mega exemption, to check whether, third point, check whether particular transaction covered in schedule 3 or mega exemption. Check whether particular point covered in whether a particular point covered in schedule 3 or mega exemption. Now, suppose this is my transaction. Okay, this is the transaction. I have checked it properly. I have checked it properly whether that transaction is covered in mega exemption or that transaction is covered in schedule 3. I found neither it is covered in schedule 3, neither it is covered in my that mega exemption wala part. So basically, when it is not covered anywhere, that means it is liable to tax. Itna to confirm hai ki this is a supply that is liable to tax. So now I would check whether it is covered in reverse charge mechanism, yes or no. If it is covered in reverse charge mechanism, then I have to apply reverse charge mechanism ka concept. But if this list is not covered in reverse charge mechanism, then it would be my forward charge. Getting? Then it would be my forward charge. So basically, I have read a transaction. First of all, identify it is goods or it is service. If it is not good, not service, bahar. If it is goods and service, whatever the case may be, first of all, I do have to identify whether it is covered in Schedule 3, whether it is covered in anywhere in mega exemption. No, not covered. That means for sure not tax liability is there. Now, when for sure tax liability is there, next I have to decide whether it is covered in reverse charge mechanism or it is in a forward charge mechanism. Are you getting that concept? Now, chalo. This also done ki okay, either forward or reverse as the case may be. Now, after this fourth number point, what I should decide? In fourth number point, you have to decide whether it is a composite supply, whether it is a composite supply, whether it is a mixed supply, whether it is a interstate supply or whether it is a intrastate supply. Basically, your inter and intra will define IGST or CGST, and your composition or mixed supply, as the case may be, would decide the rate of tax. This will decide the rate of tax. This will also decide the rate of tax, but the category, whether it is CGST or it is IGST. Understood? So point number 4. Identify whether the supply is composite or mixed supply, whether the supply is composite or mixed supply under the category of interstate or intrastate, under the category of interstate or intrastate. Are you getting the pointers we are trying to collect for question number 1? Step by step, we have to think everything. Okay. Now, point number 5. It was a supply. It was a supply of goods or a supply of service. It is not covered in RCM. It is not covered in mega exemption, but it is without consideration. So now it is a supply of goods or supply of service. But that supply of goods or that supply of services without consideration. So basically, when it is without consideration, in such a case, what should I do? Sabse pehle, without consideration supply of goods, without consideration supply of service. Just focus on without consideration supply of service. Can you name me only one paragraph you have to relate when it comes to specifically without consideration supply of service from outside India? Where we should relate this?
Schedule 1.
Import of service, ma'am.
Import of service. So basically, when it is without consideration, you find it is supply. Not covered in RCM, not covered in mega exemption schedule number 3, वो सब हो गया. Now I have to decide what I have to decide. It is without consideration, and when the things are without consideration imported from outside India, relate directly to schedule number 1. But when it is service, but in India without consideration, so where I should relate this? Without consideration, again service ka supply, but in India only.
Principal and agent.
Pardon? Himadri, pardon?
Principal and agent.
Agent principal is specifically for goods.
Correct. Sorry.
Ma'am, schedule number 1.
And schedule number 1 to everyone knows, but what is the para?
Supply of goods or service between related person or distinct person.
Only one paragraph. supply of goods, because it is having goods also, but it is having service also. So when in India, without consideration service relate directly to related and distinct person. But when from outside India, goods and only service, then relate to your import of service wala part. So are you getting precise? India mein where you have to see without consideration if it is related or distinct person. That means, ma'am, if in India we are taking the supply of service without consideration and neither distinct person, neither my related party, in such a case, it is not at all a supply. Are you getting? It is not at all a supply, because whenever consideration goes, schedule 1 pops up. जब consideration चला गया, हमारा schedule 1 आया, in schedule 1 nothing is mentioned. If I talk about para number 1, permanent transfer of business asset specifically dedicated to asset. When it comes to agent principal, specifically goods. When it comes to your related party or distinct person, only goods and service written over there. And when it comes to import of service, it is specifically import of service. When it comes to import of service, it is specifically what import of service. So are you getting this thing clear? So we should write it down like this. Now, when it is import of service, so when it is related to service, and you are taking service without consideration. And when it relates to goods, you are taking goods without consideration. So when service without consideration, when goods without consideration. Now service I have taken without consideration, now it is import. And when it is domestic. In import, where I should link it, because it is without consideration. So import without consideration directly relate to schedule 1, import of service. And that should be specifically from related or deemed related or your own establishment outside India. ये भी specifically किससे related your own establishment outside India. And when it comes to domestic, again you have to see schedule 1, but it is again related party and deemed distinct person. Can I say one thing? Whether it is import of service, whether it is supply within the state, within country, one common thing is related party. Are you getting? One common thing is my related party. If I import from a related party, or if it is domestic transaction of service with a related party without consideration, it is supply. Or it is own establishment outside India or deemed a distinct person in India. That means दोनों का कहीं ना कहीं the context is same. Either your own establishment outside India or deemed distinct person is your own establishment only, na? Are you getting? The context is totally same. Import of service or whether it is domestic, दोनों का context same है. In short, when it is supply of service in India without consideration, own establishment related party, or import of service, own establishment related party, both the cases it is supply. But one difference, when it is import of service, reverse charge mechanism. And when it is domestic wala thing, it is not reverse charge mechanism until specifically covered in reverse charge mechanism. Are you getting that concept? So write it down. This chart, properly write down. When it is an activity without consideration, when it is an activity without consideration related to service, and then draw this related to service, done. Now, what if it is related to goods? Now, when it is import of goods, specifically custom is there. And when it is domestic goods, we are doing the transaction, domestic wala transaction in relation to goods without consideration. First check, is it permanent transfer? First of all. Second, you should check whether it is agent to principal, principal to agent, or it is between related or deemed distinct. Are you getting? So when it comes to import of goods, ignore why it is covered in custom. वो तो custom में covered है. But when it comes to domestic nature wala goods ka dealing without consideration, whether it is permanent transfer, no, it is not permanent transfer wala thing. Whether it is between related or deemed distinct person, no, it is not between related deemed distinct person. Whether it is agent principal, 3 points: permanent transfer, agent principal, related and deemed distinct. If none of the above, it is not at all a supply. When not at all a supply, no GST. Write it down. In relation to goods, import of goods, from that chart. Yeah, import of goods and domestic. Whether permanent transfer, whether between related or deemed distinct person, or agent principal. Now I can create lots of probabilities over here. Even if it is between related person, that related is not dependent, related is dependent. So notice on that wordings also. If it is not a dependent relative and he was actually required to be a dependent relative, again it is not at all a supply. Are you getting? Uske andar bhi there are probabilities where they can judge you. So if it is related, check whether dependent is required. Is it dependent? Whether legally recognized partner. If it is not legally recognized partner, in such a case, it is not at all a supply. Are you getting? We have already done this before. I'm just giving you a recall of all the concepts because now we are going to question number 1 ka practice. When it relates to, again, apart from this related party, suppose it relates to agent principal wala concept. Whether it is an agent as per my paragraph, because my paragraph states only that agent is covered who can make invoice in his own name. But if that agent is not able to make invoices in his own name, in such a case, he is not an wala agent. Such a case, again, it is not at all a supply. So, are you getting? Write it down. एक note लिखो. Write a note. Always focus additional conditions. Always focus additional conditions in relation to related party, comma, agent, comma, permanent transfer or temporary, etc. Permanent transfer or temporary, etc. Are you getting all the conditions we have discussed in schedule? Supply ki definition. Such a asset pe hi ITC should be there. Aa raha hai na yaar? So, always check the additional condition with respect to related party, with respect to agent, transfer related, in order to check whether it is actually a supply or outside the scope of schedule 1. Whether it is actually a supply or outside the scope of schedule 1. So basically, can you just notice it is not just a question number 1. Can I say that entire GST they are trying to cover in it? Okay. So first of all, I have done now this. Service se related be done when it is not consideration. Goods se related also done with it when it is not consideration. Now it comes to applying of the tax rate. So we have basically done now whether it is composite, whether it is mixed supply, whether it is interstate, whether it is intra. Mixed supply is two or more supply. But when it comes to composite, two or more taxable supply, compulsory return. Focus on that. Now, we were just about to apply the rate of tax. But one more thing I have to see. What is the ITC available to me? I will apply rate of tax. I am going to pay the output tax liability. But before paying output tax liability, first of all, judge yourself whether there is ITC available to you. Input tax credit. So in order to calculate the input tax credit, we have to see the chapter of ITC. Now in chapter of ITC, they have given certain blocked credit. There are certain conditions of section number 16. Without that section number 16 ka condition, again you cannot get ITC. So are you getting? We are entering into the chapter of input tax credit. So write down next point. Before calculating output tax liability, before the calculation of output tax liability, check whether ITC available or not. Whether ITC is available or not. Whether ITC blocked under 17 subsection 5, whether the ITC is blocked under section 17 subsection 5 or section 16 related conditions are being followed or not, or section 16 related conditions being followed or not. Getting an idea? Now, okay, ma'am, ITC is blocked. When ITC is blocked, don't worry about that. You don't have to take that input tax credit. We have to just write in the notes that this ITC is blocked. But what if, ma'am, that ITC is available to me? Now that ITC ka calculation again you have to do. Are you getting? Okay, ITC is available to you. Yes, ITC. Nikki video on, Pallavi video on. सबसे पहले, yes, ITC is available. Yeah, it is available. Now I have to do the calculations of this ITC. I have to calculate this ITC. How I would be able to calculate this ITC? That depends on whether the good is a capital good or that is an input. Okay, that means calculation of ITC depends on capital goods. It depends on input. If it is capital goods, then we have to apply rule number 42. When 43, when it comes to input, we have to apply rule number 42. That means now next stage is, you know ki ITC is available. Now first of all check whether it is capital goods or whether it is input. That means for capital goods and for input, rules are different for calculation of ITC. Are you getting? So now entirely in the chapter of input tax credit, you have to check whether the goods is capital goods or input, because calculation ka method is different for capital goods and calculation method is different for input. So write it down. If ITC is available, next point, if ITC is available, if ITC is available, identify whether capital goods, whether on capital goods or input, whether on capital goods or input. As rule number 42 and 43 apply, as rule number 42, 43 apply for calculation of ITC. As rule number 42, 43 apply for calculation of ITC for input and capital goods respectively. For input and capital goods respectively. Done. So basically you have checked whether it is blocked or not, whether section number 16 के condition you have followed or not. You have followed section 16 का condition. You have checked that it is blocked or not. Now you have calculated ITC. Would you be able to just utilize ITC as such? No. Now you have to calculate your output tax liability. So where I will calculate my output tax liability, already I have discussed that the supply, whether composite, whether mixed, so that will decide my output tax liability. So ma'am, I have decided on the basis of composite, mixed, interstate, intrastate, what is the rate of tax I have to pay. I have also calculated ITC. Should I pay directly? Wait, now apply tax credit utilization ka rule. That CGST could be utilized with CGST, SGST with SGST, but IGST with CGST also and SGST also. Remember payment of tax wala chapter now. So now we are entering after calculation of ITC. Now calculate payment of tax. So what is the payment of tax? IGST with IGST, IGST with CGST also, IGST with SGST also, CGST with CGST, SGST with SGST, but cross connection is not possible between CGST and SGST. What I am simply doing, ITC ka rule I am applying how to utilize input tax credit. So that is given there in my payment of tax. Remember? So now next point. After calculation of ITC, after calculation of ITC, apply utilization of ITC rules. Apply utilization of ITC rules. Now, what are the rules of utilization? Point number 1, IGST input for IGST tax. Utilize IGST का input for IGST का tax liability. Balance IGST input. Second, balance of IGST input. Balance of IGST input for CGST or SGST liability. For CGST or SGST liability, as the case may be. That depends on you. What is the amount you have to utilize? That entirely depends on you. Second, CGST ka input. CGST input first with CGST liability. CGST input first with CGST liability. And balance with IGST. Can I write SGST? No, never. CGST ka balance with IGST liability. And similarly for SGST, SGST input for SGST liability and balance for IGST. Done. So basically, this is the overall steps for calculation of question number 1. But now let me add the pointers, extra pointers. Do write extra pointers. Point number 1. So we have calculated every liability, etc. But if I have done a supply, and it is covered under reverse charge mechanism, that means my recipient will be paying the taxes. Supply done by me, but my recipient would be paying the taxes. Would I be eligible for ITC? No. So do not forget, if invert supply you have done, you have purchased something that is an invert supply for you. In such a case, you are paying RCM में taxes. In such a case, ITC available to you. But if it is outward RCM wala supply, no ITC for that will be available to you. So write down outward RCM, outward supply of RCM, no tax credit available. Outward supply of RCM, no tax credit available to supplier. However, when it is inward supply under RCM, ITC available to recipient. So you have to judge whether you are doing supply under RCM or it is inward supply under RCM. Okay. Point number 2. Now, while giving all these things, might be possible directly value of supply given, might be possible directly value of supply not given. Now they would give like this: goods ka value is this, till delivery these are the ancillary expenses, these are the taxes inclusive in the value of supply. Are you getting? Now they would give certain hints about the value of supply ka chapter. So write second point, value of supply could directly be given or certain adjustment of value of supply you might find. Value of supply could directly be given or certain adjustment with respect to supply you might find. With respect to value of supply you might find. Done. Last point. They might use the wordings of job work 73-74 section. They might use the wordings of job work 73-74 section, time of supply, return ka concept, etc. Properly judge whether it is just using of words or any implication needed. It is just using the words or any implication needed. Done. So basically, is it clear that question number 1 is not only one chapter, already it is a compilation of module number 1 and ITC of module number 2. Now they can also give registration ka threshold limit also, anything they could give over there. So chota mota to kahin se bhi thoda bahut little bit adjustment from any chapter they can just merge. You have to actually see whether actual mein adjustment needed or it is just a wording they have used. Okay? Okay? Now, from now onwards, I am starting your mega exemption ka chapter. So basically, it is just a filler. Mega exemption is a filler. Now, ITC is also a filler. So the base was your supply, base was your RCM, base was your place of supply, time of supply, value of supply. That was the base. Now just I have to check whether my supply is covered under mega exemption or whether my supply not covered under mega exemption. How would I calculate my input tax credit? Done? Okay? Chalo. So when it comes to mega exemption, we have already discussed certain mega exemption in linkage with RCM, already discussed some mega exemption in linkage with supply. So those we have already discussed, we will just have a look on that, and those we have not discussed, that I will focus more. Okay? Chalo. So first of all, if anyone is having November 22 ka PDF, do send me the PDF right now. So it would be basically easy. Still now, November 22 ka compiler not available. Shivek, you are having na? Nahi aaya abhi. See, if you want, May 22 is more than sufficient. May 22 ka PDF is more than sufficient to do continue with that. Don't wait for compiler to come. Okay? चलो, तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल May 22 का यू जस्ट ओपन. चलो. So, mega exemption with respect to service. When it comes to writing the answer, you don't have to remember the entry number. It is not at all possible to remember the entry number. You just have to write this thing. Notification 12/2017. You just have to write notification 12/2017, and according to notification 12/2017, whatever has been exempted. Basically, you just have to quote the notification, no entry number needed at all. Now, service number 1, service by charitable entity, notification 12/2017, you have to remember. If entity, service by an entity registered under 12AA or AB of Income Tax Act, giving charitable activity is exempt. Now, सबसे पहले, when it comes to mega exemption, focus whether it is service by or service to. Service by or service to. So my charitable institute is providing service and it is service by charitable entity. So when my charitable entity registered under this section, basically this section will not exist after some time. It would be only 12AB. But for the time being, as it is transition provisions going on, so they have written 12AA also. So when my charitable trust is providing the charitable services, charitable activity, it is exempt. So basically now, straightforward. Charitable activity, yes. By charitable entity, yes. Registered under 12AA or AB, yes. Then it is exempt. So ये तो बहुत purely nothing, just part of reading. What is charitable activity? Ma'am, we know the charitable activity, section number 2, subsection 15, right? Or section 14. It was about charitable activity in our that chapter. Charitable trust. वही है?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me. We have done now the charitable activity that we have done in charitable trust DT में. Don't make a mistake of applying that charitable activity over here. Okay, do not do the mistake. Although it is registered under Income Tax Act, yes, but it has well-defined charitable activity. So charitable activity number 1. सबसे पहले public health. Only notice the word public health. Whether you are giving care counseling, either you are taking care or you are just giving the counseling. So whether care, whether counseling of terminally ill people, either physically or mentally ill. whether he is affiliated by AIDS or HIV, or he is addicted to drugs. So basically you are taking counseling or you are taking care of such person, either they are gone from here, either HIV AIDS, or either they are got that Kabir Singh, that is drugs or alcohol wale log hain, theek hai. So if you are taking care, they are specifically written counseling of person addicted from drug. अरे counseling also covered, care also covered, दोनों चीजें covered है. बातचीत भी करना, counseling is also covered, care is also covered. Whether HIV AIDS, whether it is narcotic drugs, or whether it is what your terminally ill person. Word terminally is important. If it is normal illness, it's not serve illness, बहुत ज्यादा कुछ नहीं है, थोड़ा सा बीमार पड़ गए, तो उसकी care counseling is not covered here. So it should be terminally. Terminal मतलब already इसका go gone होने वाला है, ठीक है, ठीक है. तो invitation from God is already on the way, तो that is terminally ill. भगवान का संदेश आ चुका है, बस कब चले जाएंगे वो नहीं पता. तो ऐसे लोगों का चाहे यहाँ से गए वो लोग या फिर physically गए हैं, तो in such a care counseling covered. तो do highlight terminally, that is important. ठीक है. Now the first is public health. Now ignore public health. Main I have to focus is terminally ill का care counseling, HIV AIDS वालों का care counseling, और इधर से कबीर सिंह वाले narcotic drugs वगैरह का care counseling I have to do. चलो, I have done that thing. अब make people aware about their health. When you have taken care of all this person, you find कि नहीं भैया, let them get aware about their health. तो public awareness, whether family planning, prevention of HIV or health, for their health you are doing the public awareness. So basically notice the word public awareness, whether HIV वाले लोगों का public awareness, whether health related public awareness, whether family planning related public awareness. So public awareness about health वाला part, now health already include HIV also. So health or family planning, two words you have to remember. So public awareness, care counseling done, public awareness done. So care counseling of HIV, care counseling of narcotic, care counseling of terminally ill physically or mentally. Only keywords: physically, mentally, terminally ill. And then your care counseling about your HIV or AIDS. Then your care counseling about addicted person. Then making them aware, public awareness of all this: HIV, family planning, preventive health. Preventive health means to prevent the health, prevent your health. Okay. Then advancement of spirituality, religion, yoga. Oh, yoga. How can you say yoga is not a charitable activity? My Ramdev Baba is doing only the charity, teaching everyone yoga and not at all earning even a single penny out of it. Are you getting it? Is political influence. Whether it comes to DT or whether it comes to IDT. Both, now उनको direct tax लगेगा, नहीं उनको indirect tax also not applicable. Why? It is charitable. So when it comes to advancement of religion, advancement of yoga, advancement of spirituality, only these three things have been covered: religion, yoga, spirituality. Not even fourth wala point. Again advancement they have covered. Again an advancement of education or skill development program, but it is only for this specified kind of person. And again they have covered preservation of environment. So my focus area. सबसे पहले, now starting with the analysis. First of all, it is care counseling of terminally ill people. Main cheese is terminal, whether physically gone or mentally gone, terminal. HIV, AIDS, or whether narcotics. Then public awareness of any person, whether terminally, non-terminally, prevent health, family planning. उसमें कुछ नहीं देखना. Don't see the bifurcation over there. Then it comes to advancement of yoga, advancement of religion, advancement of spirituality. Now I have organized a function. मैंने एक function organize किया. Organization is a service. Organizing an event is a service, right? So this is that service. So you have organized an event. मैम कहाँ पढ़ा है organizing event? Place of supply. Remember? So you are organizing an event for yoga. Wait a minute, don't see the place of supply. Why? Organizing the event especially for yoga is already mega exempted. So are you just checking when it comes to place of supply also? If that place of supply is mega exempted over here, again, do not check the place of supply, simply write it is mega exempted, so no tax liability here, whether it is intra, whether it is inter, because although mega exempted. Now, second, advancement of yoga spirituality or your yoga spirituality or religion. I have organized an event. That event is having yoga also, as well as aerobic dance will also be teach over there. So basically main is aerobic wala function and yoga will be little bit. Thoda bahut yoga ka we will tell them what is the advantage. So it is a composite. It is what bundled thing. Now you have to check whether it is mixed wala or it is composite wala. So it is yoga also and it is what having your aerobics also. So first of all check it is aerobic. Basically main focus is not on yoga, main focus is on your dance aerobic. In such a case, this event just by introducing yoga will not make it mega exempted. It is actually taxable. So again, when it comes to mega exemption and organizing event or any other service, you will see, check what is the principal nature. If they merge something, check the principal nature in it. So are you getting, we have written the pointers. Pointers is valid. You have to every time in activity check whether it is composite, mixed, inter or intra. Understood it now? So now again advancement. Spirituality, religion, yoga done. Only 3 things have been covered. Not at all a 4th thing has been covered. No. No means no. But again advancement of education and skill development. When it comes to education ka advancement, when it comes to skill development ka advancement, now they are person specific. For yoga Himagiri, for yoga, for spirituality, for your religion, there is no person specific. Koi person specific nahi. For anyone, if you are doing this advancement, it is mega exempted. But when it comes to education and skill development, the person has been specified. Now the person number 1. This person is a prisoner. Oh, why a prisoner? We will create a story over there. This is a person who is either orphan or homeless child. Orphan and homeless child was mentally, physically traumatized. He was mentally as well as physically traumatized. So he gone to a wrong way and got prison. गलत रास्ते पे गया, इसको क्या कर दिया, इसको जेल भेज दिया, prison. Now after getting free from prison, he was actually 65 ka age. Over the age of 65, he got free from the prison and directly he went to his rural area. अपने गांव चला गया. तो बेसिकली इन हिंदी हमारा होमलेस चाइल्ड ट्रॉमेटाइज था फिजिकली एज वेल एज मेंटली, गलत रास्ता पकड़ के उसको जेल चला गया. जेल से 65 के बाद वो फ्री हुआ, सीधे अपने गांव जाके बैठ गया. आर यू गेटिंग? नाउ इन इंग्लिश, ठीक है? नाउ इंग्लिश वर्जन. The homeless child was physically, mentally traumatized. He chosen the wrong path, due to which he was sent to prison. He got free from prison after 65. After 65 means above 65, and directly he went to his rural area. Done. So these are the person who are covered. If you are doing education or skill development program for such a kind of person, in such a case it is mega exempted. Again, ma'am, education and skill development program for above 65 age wala person, but that is an urban area wala person. Oh. Specifically, he should be rural area ka person. Getting the logic. They will frame you mega exemption, but pointers are whether rural to rural, urban to urban. They will change the wordings. So you have to focus. It is सबसे पहले above 65 का age and only rural. Now changing again. This is a person. Education program for such a person. Education program for such a person of 65 ka age of rural area. Notice it is not 65 age. It is above 65. Are you getting? So even 65 के age वाले person के लिए doing all this stuff Doesn't matter. Why it doesn't matter? It doesn't matter because over 65 have been written. So what are my keywords? सबसे पहला keyword terminal. Now second keyword yoga spirituality में any person. It could be for any person, not person specific. Also check composition or mixed supply in such event. Also check composition or mixed supply in such event. Then when it comes to education and skill development, person specific. Write down, it is person specific. And highlight above 65, rural. Highlight above 65 and rural. The rest you will remember. Done? Now, again, I have to focus. Now, where I have to focus? Service by, so that is done ki service is provided by my charitable entity. Okay, service is provided by my charitable entity. Now, the service is related to all this charitable activity wala service, that is also okay. But here they have written charitable entity, and some other places they are writing this word charitable trust. What is the difference between a charitable trust and charitable entity? Can anyone tell me? Is it same? Is it synonym, or there is a difference?
Charitable trust is registered under 12A. 12A, 12B. Entity is not necessarily be registered under Act, I think. No? No voice, ma'am.
Again, read that properly. They have written entity registered under 12AA, 12AB. So they have specified that entity is registered under 12AA, 12AB. Then what is charitable trust?
Reverse sulta? No.
Any idea? So get an idea.
Nowadays, no. No.
First, it's an entity, and when it gets registered under it, then it's a trust.
Let us not create the probabilities. So, when it comes to charitable entity, it is registered under 12AB or 12AA. But when it comes to charitable trust, it could be 12AA, it could be 12AB, it could be 1023C. Remember, it could be 1023CC. Where it has been given, ma'am? It has been given.
In income tax, ma'am.
Hospital.
Come to religious.
Education wala, ma'am.
See.
Hospital education.
Trust, it is 12AA, 12AB also. It could be 1023C also. It could be 1023BBA also. So when a trust word has been written, it includes every trust. But when entity is written, it is AA or AB only. Write it down. Give me just 1 minute. Done? Now, again there is specific kind of thing. अभी तो बचा है, अभी तो है. Now, So it is service by charitable entity, done. It is only this charitable activity wala service, that is also done. It should be charitable entity, it should not be charitable trust. So if they have given charitable entity and if they have given charitable trust to the, अब क्या करोगे? Instead of charitable entity, they have written service provided by charitable trust for care counseling of terminally ill person. Is it mega exam? Yes or no? Service provided by charitable trust regarding terminally ill person. Mega exempt yes or mega exempt no?
If it is registered under 12A or 8, yes.
Charitable trust already include everything.
Yeah.
Yes, it is mega exempted. Do not get confused. Charitable entity is specific, but
Correct.
charitable trust include everything. So already it is mega exempted. We will presume that yes, it is 12AB and AB double A wala. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
But at places where specifically charitable trust has written and charitable entity they are writing, is vice versa possible? Again, vice versa also possible. Why? Because charitable trust covers everything. So whether they write entity or whether they write trust, doesn't matter. Okay? But specifically they have written this service provided by charitable and charitable trust registered under 1023C. Now that is not covered. Why? Because their specific double AB is written. So where instead of specific entity they have specified it is registered under 1023C double BA 1023C. In such a case, you have to notice this point. So are you getting? It is not just mega exemption. Again, lots of probabilities. Okay, so note, write down all these points. I'm just telling you have to just keep writing. And this video will be uploaded on YouTube, only this one, first one. Okay. Jenna, do cover the initial part, that was really very important. Write it down quickly. About the entity, what is trust? What is the interchange they could give? Quickly write it down. Sure. I will send you a PDF that is already roughly written by me. In such a case, similar like that, you have to create by to. Now, this is service by charitable trust. What if charitable trust is getting service? So there are only 2 pointers that has been covered. When charitable trust will be getting the service, that is also exempt. Only 2 points have been covered. So basically, when it comes to charitable trust, import of service, remember, import of service by charitable trust for charitable activity, that is 2. Service to charitable trust, to charitable entity, that is exempt. And right now we are discussing service by charitable trust. Second service, drug addiction related, there are professions that who help the person to get free from this drug addiction, etc. If such a person is providing service to an organization of charitable trust for all this drug addiction ke removal ke liye, that service is again 2. That service is again 2. These 2 services are exempt when it is given to charitable trust. Are you getting? So 2 service only. When it is given to charitable trust, exempted. When I am discussing right now the service provided by, the service provided by charitable trust, all these charitable activities are exempted. इतना समझ में आया? Again, charitable activity by अभी अपन discuss कर रहे हैं. So when it comes to by, so directly hospital is the managed. Hospital management, hospital, it is not hotel management. Hospital management necessity wali cheez. If it is managed by charitable trust, everything is included. So again, by wale mein we have to write hospital wala also. So by mein charitable activity is also there. By mein hospital is also there. Now again, hostel management also there. Oh, hostel ka accommodation also provided. So when hostel accommodation is provided, the accommodation service in hostel including by trust, the value is up to 1,000 per day exempt. First of all, hostel management, yes. By trust, yes. Hostel management by trust, 999 exempt. 1,000 exempt, 1,001 not exempt, and it is daily basis 1,000. It is not monthly 1,000. So per day 1,000. That means if they have returned the hostel accommodation service provided for 30,000. For 30,000, it is a month of April. So April month 30,000 valid, up to 1,000 they are charging. But they have written if it is 65,000, obviously 60,000, 65, about 31,000, irrespective of month, it is chargeable to tax. So hostel services, hostel accommodation service provided by, let's say provided by central government, hostel service provided by the central government. सबसे पहले right now it is only charitable activity, charitable trust by charitable trust 1,000 तक exempt. Are you getting this? अब मैम when it comes to place of supply we have done immovable property related accommodation service, right? Place of supply, you remember? Accommodation service provided in hostel, motel, everywhere hotel. तो अच्छा, even though they have given this कि place of supply calculate करो, we will not do this for here because it is already mega exempted. Are you getting the minute detailing how to link every topic? And even I have told you right now, would not be possible for you until and unless you will do multiple writing wala practice as well as multiple cross-linking reading. It is only possible by cross-linking reading. So I will give you an index after which chapter you have to read which chapter. And already हमने place to place we have already written कहाँ पे क्या link होगा. So linkage is very important. ठीक है? Now, so when it comes to by में we have done charitable activity provided by charitable entity, hospital management service by the trust, then hostel management up to only 1,000 that is exempted. But ma'am, what if all these services to charitable trust are taxable? अभी तक हम वही तो डिस्कस कर रहे हैं. It should be provided by, but if they are getting these services, it is taxable. All this service given to them, taxable. Hotel accommodation service to a person of charitable trust, taxable. I am providing prevention of health wala service to whom? Charitable trust. That for them it is taxable because I am providing to them. But when they are providing this only in such a case it is exempt. So precisely to and by should be remembered. Done? Then again, when you are displaying the name or placing the name of the donor, arey yaar, I have discussed it somewhere, displaying the name, placing the name of the donor, premises as a gratuity.
In supply.
In supply.
So when in supply, you are doing it for promotional purpose, that was the supply. So when it was for promotional service, promotional nature, it is liable to GST. But if it is not advertisement, In such a case, it was mega exempted because it was not at all a supply. Done? So same clarification.
It was scheduled to.
No, it was not scheduled to. It was simply a clarification.
Clarification.
Again, service by. Again, service by my charitable entity. Now, which kind of service they are providing? Training service, coaching service. So, if it is training and coaching service, again in by ke niche what we have to write? Training service by my charitable entity. Coaching service by my charitable entity, exempt. Ma'am, training and coaching service, any specific area mein we have to provide, nothing specified. In any area they are providing training, coaching service, recreational service. Cooking is not a recreational service. Okay, cooking is not a recreational service. Recreational activity नहीं है ये कि कोई creative ऐसा नहीं माना जाता. It is not recreational activity. So by के जगह पे क्या कह रहा है? By is charitable activity done. Second, my by is what? Hotel management, hotel management, hotel management.
Hospital management, ma'am.
Hospital management, hostel accommodation up to 1,000 per month, है ना? Hostel
Per day, ma'am.
Per day.
then recreational activity provided, that is also exempt. But all this service too will be taxable. अभी तक कितना है? Until now we have not completed charitable trust. अभी भी complete नहीं हुआ. We have to link many places पे charitable वाला जहां जहां पे लिख के रखा है ना, wherever it has been written, we will compile it over one place so that एक ही जगह clustering of charitable trust done. So I will be sharing the PDF. So that is for the idea how to make that. Okay. Chalo. So from tomorrow it will take 3 days for mega exemption, at least 3 days. Okay. So be precisely available in the class.